It was a cold, moonless night when 5 friends, David, Anu, Peter, Charles, and Devine, were driving back from a late-night party. The road they had taken was empty and surrounded by thick, dark woods. The headlights of their car were the only light cutting through the heavy fog that seemed to grow thicker as they drove deeper into the forest. David, who was driving, tried to stay calm, but the strange silence outside made everyone uneasy. Normally, roads at night had at least the sound of crickets or the rustle of wind through trees. Tonight, there was nothing. It felt as if the whole forest was holding its breath. Suddenly, the car gave a loud jerk and stopped. David tried to start the engine again, but it refused to work. Peter got out of the car to check, and the others followed. The air outside was colder than inside, and a strange stillness surrounded them. "This road feels wrong," Anu whispered nervously. She hugged herself, her eyes darting around as if expecting something to jump out. "Don't be silly," Charles said, though his voice was not steady. "It's just an old road. Maybe the car overheated." Devine bent down to look under the hood with Peter. "Nothing's wrong here," she said softly. "It's like the car just died on its own." The group exchanged worried glances. The forest stretched endlessly around them, and there was no sign of another car or even a passing light. The silence pressed heavily on their ears, making them feel watched. Then Anu froze. "Did you see that?" she asked, pointing toward the trees. "What?" David asked quickly. "I swear. I saw something moving," she whispered. Everyone turned to look, but the trees stood still in the pale moonlight. No wind, no sound, only shadows waiting in the dark. The night had just begun. The 5 friends stood by their broken car, unsure of what to do. The night around them felt heavier with every passing minute. The forest was so quiet that even their footsteps on the road seemed too loud. Anu kept glancing toward the dark trees. "I'm telling you, I saw something moving," she whispered again. Her voice trembled. Peter tried to calm her. "It was probably just an animal. Maybe a deer," he said, though deep down, he did not believe it himself. The forest felt empty, too empty for any living thing. Charles crossed his arms. "We can't just stand here all night. There must be a village or a house nearby. Someone who can help us." Devine looked down the long road, swallowed in mist. No sign of lights, no sound of cars, no movement at all. "If there was a village here, wouldn't we hear something?" she asked softly. David tried to stay brave for everyone. "Let's wait for a while. Maybe another car will pass by." But even as he said it, he knew the chances were low. The road looked abandoned, as if no one had traveled it in years. A cold breeze passed through them, making the leaves rustle faintly. It was the first sound since the car had stopped, but instead of comforting them, it made their skin crawl. Suddenly, Anu gasped. "There! Again!" She pointed into the trees. All of them turned their heads quickly. For a moment, they thought they saw a tall, shadowy figure standing between the trees, watching them. But in the blink of an eye, it was gone. "Did you see it?" Anu asked desperately. No one answered. Their faces were pale, and their silence told her everything. Something was out there, and it was not human. The group stood frozen by the car, still shaken by the shadow they thought they had seen. None of them wanted to admit how scared they really were, but the fear was written clearly on their faces. "We can't stay here," Charles finally said. His voice was low but firm. "If something is out there, we need to move." David nodded slowly. "But where will we go? There's nothing on this road." Then Devine pointed through the trees. "Wait, do you see that?" Far in the distance, between the thick branches, a faint light flickered. It was small, like the glow of a candle or a lantern. For a moment, they thought it was their imagination, but the light remained, glowing faintly in the mist. "A house," Peter whispered. "Maybe someone lives there. They could help us." The group hesitated. The idea of leaving the car and walking into the dark woods was terrifying. But the thought of staying on the road, completely alone, felt worse. Slowly, they began walking toward the light. The trees seemed to close in around them, and every step on the damp ground echoed in their ears. The deeper they went, the colder it became, as if the air itself was warning them to turn back. Finally, they reached a clearing. In the middle of it stood an old, broken house. Its walls were cracked, and the roof sagged. The windows were shattered, and the wood was blackened as if touched by fire long ago. Yet, from inside, a faint yellow glow flickered. The friends exchanged uneasy glances. "Someone lives here?" Anu asked in disbelief. As they stepped closer, the front door creaked loudly and swung open by itself. The sound echoed through the silent forest. Peter's throat went dry. It's inviting us in." No one wanted to go inside. But something about the house pulled them forward, step by step. The dead of night had chosen its prey. The moment the group stepped inside, the air changed. The old house smelled of damp wood, dust, and something faintly metallic, like dried blood. Their footsteps echoed on the creaking floorboards as if the house was alive, listening to them. David shined his phone's flashlight across the walls. Strange, dark symbols were carved into the wood, twisted shapes that none of them understood. The paint on the walls had peeled away, and long cracks spread like veins through the plaster. "This place feels wrong," Anu whispered, clutching Devine's arm. "Maybe someone still lives here," Peter said, though his voice was shaky. "We should call out." Before David could speak, a cold wind rushed through the room, making the old curtains flap violently. Yet all the windows were closed. The group froze in fear. Suddenly, Devine stiffened. Her eyes widened as she looked toward the staircase. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Everyone listened. At first, there was nothing. Then it came, a faint whisper. A voice calling her name. "Devine." Her skin turned cold, and she stepped back quickly. No, someone's here," she said, her voice trembling. The door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang, making them all jump. David ran to it and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if something invisible was holding it closed. "Stop playing games," Charles shouted into the dark, his fear turning into anger. His voice echoed, but no reply came. Suddenly, Peter's flashlight flickered. For a brief moment, the group saw a tall, dark figure standing at the end of the hallway. Its face was hidden in the shadows, but its glowing eyes burned in the dark. Then the light went out. The house had locked them in, and the night was only beginning. The darkness inside the house was suffocating. Only the weak glow from David's phone kept them from being swallowed by it completely. The group stayed close together, their breathing heavy, each second filled with tension. "I don't like this," Anu whispered. Her voice trembled. "Something is watching us." Peter tried to stay calm. "We just need to find another way out. Maybe a back door." But before they could move, Charles pointed toward the hallway. "Look," he hissed. At the far end of the corridor, a shadowy figure stood motionless. It was tall, its body stretched unnaturally thin, its face hidden in darkness. Two glowing eyes stared at them with a cold, inhuman gaze. For a moment, no one moved. Then, without warning, the figure glided down the hallway, disappearing into the darkness. Charles clenched his fists. "I'm not letting this thing scare us. I'm going after it." "Are you crazy?" David shouted, grabbing his arm. "We need to stay together." But Charles pulled free. "If it's a person, I'll deal with them. If it's something else," he didn't finish his sentence. With angry determination, he walked into the hallway. "Charles, wait!" Devine cried, but he was already gone. The group listened, holding their breath. At first, there was only silence. Then a distant scream tore through the house. It was Charles. His cry was full of pain and terror, echoing through the halls until it suddenly cut off. Anu covered her mouth to stop from screaming. Devine's eyes filled with tears. "He's gone," she whispered. David's face turned pale. "No, he can't be," but deep down, he knew the truth. The shadows in the house had taken Charles. And now, they were coming for the rest of them. The house grew colder after Charles's scream faded. The silence was worse than the noise it pressed against their ears, making every heartbeat sound louder. David kept his flashlight steady, though his hands shook. "We need to get out. Now." "But how?" Devine whispered, her voice breaking. "The door is locked. Charles is gone. What if we're next?" Anu clung to Peter's arm, her face pale. "Something doesn't want us to leave." Peter swallowed hard, trying to be brave. "Then maybe we should find out what it is." They moved slowly through the hallway, passing the strange symbols on the walls. The carvings seemed to twist and change in the light, as if alive. At the end of the corridor, they entered a large room that looked like an old living room. On the dusty floor lay broken furniture and shattered glass. A huge portrait hung crooked on the wall. It showed a family, their faces scratched out violently with deep cuts. Beneath it, candles flickered even though no one had lit them. "This house belonged to them," David said quietly, staring at the ruined painting. Suddenly, the candles went out. The room plunged into darkness. A moment later, a whisper filled the air, many voices speaking at once, too soft to understand. Then they appeared. Figures rose slowly from the shadows, their bodies pale and twisted, their eyes glowing white. Their faces were broken, covered in blood and scars. The group backed away in terror as the spirits moved closer, their mouths opening in silent screams. One of the ghosts reached for Anu. She screamed as its cold hands grabbed her arms, pulling her into the darkness. Peter tried to save her, but another figure wrapped around him, dragging him to the ground. David and Devine watched helplessly as their friends disappeared into the shadows, their cries echoing until the room fell silent again. The dead had returned, and they wanted more. The room was empty now. Only David and Devine remained, their hearts pounding so loudly it felt like the house could hear. The shadows that had taken Anu, Peter, and Charles lingered in the corners, waiting. "We have to run," Devine whispered, clutching David's arm. Her voice shook with fear. David nodded, though his mind was clouded with dread. "There must be a way out. We can't give up." They moved quickly, searching the house. Every hallway seemed endless, every turn leading them deeper into the maze of darkness. The whispers followed, growing louder, filling the air with strange, broken words. Finally, they found a back door. David pulled at it with all his strength, but it wouldn't open. The wood felt alive, like it was breathing beneath his hands. Suddenly, the air turned freezing. Devine gasped as the spirits appeared again, this time, more of them. Dozens of pale figures surrounded the two, their glowing eyes fixed on them. "Stay behind me," David shouted, but he knew he could not protect her. The spirits rushed forward. Cold hands grabbed David, pulling him backward. He struggled, screaming Devine's name, but the shadows swallowed him whole. His voice faded into the walls of the cursed house. Devine stumbled, tears streaming down her face. "No, please. Leave me alone," she cried. But the dead did not listen. They circled her slowly, their whispers turning into screams. As the clock struck midnight, the house fell into silence once again. The flickering light vanished, and the front door creaked open by itself. Outside, the road lay empty under the pale moonlight. At dawn, the car engine roared to life on its own. Headlights flashed, but no one was inside. The vehicle rolled slowly into the mist, as if guided by unseen hands. The forest returned to its unnatural silence, waiting for new travelers to fall into the trap of the dead of night. And so, the house stood silent once more. David, Anu, Peter, Charles, and Devine were never seen again. Their cries faded into the walls, just like all who entered before them. If you ever find yourself on a lonely road at night, and you see a faint light deep in the forest, remember this story. Because some houses don't give shelter. They take souls. This was Dead of Night. If you enjoy such dark and chilling stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because more terrifying tales are waiting for you. Sweet dreams, if you can sleep tonight.